What you're about to watch is a segment edited from one of our 4-hour board certification courses. Each segment focuses on an area of governance that board members frequently ask us to explain in more detail. We produce these clips to provide information on demand, giving you the option to revisit key topics whenever you need clarity, reinforcement, or a quick refresher. The video is a discussion for Condominium Association board members that covers the Florida statutes governing official records and the association website requirements. This is a copyrighted video by Ardor.
Of your condominium. According to Florida Statute 718-111-12, you are required as a condominium to maintain official records of the association. And you're required to maintain them, make them available to homeowners. And all of this is part of being transparent so that homeowners understand what's happening in their community. So what are official records? It's a very broad definition according to the statute. It's defined as all documents and digital data relevant to the operation and governance of a condominium association. Think of that. All documents and digital data relevant to the operation or governance of your community. So when you have that broad umbrella of a description, it helps you appreciate that there may be much more to it than you've considered before, but that helps you understand the desirability of transparency in the association's operation and management. So what are the categories of those required records? Well, we just went through the governing documents, and we're going to add voting certificates to those governing documents if that's something you're required to have. You're required to have unit owner records, the current roster of all unit owners with mailing addresses and unit numbers, and telephone numbers if known, not a requirement, and then email addresses and fax numbers only if owners and members voluntarily provide an opt-in to allow those things to be seen. Voting proxies and sign-in sheets for membership meetings, they have to be retained for a year. Board and committee records, the minutes of all the board meetings, committee, and membership meetings. Notice materials for meetings, that's the agendas, the agenda packages, all of those things, and the written communication to all unit owners. Financial records, itemized accounting, receipts, current and proposed annual budgets, bank accounts and statements and canceled checks, invoices, transaction receipts, and deposit slips. That was a new requirement in the 2024 legislative changes. Credit card statements, if you have credit cards, reserve fund balances and transactions, and payroll records, if that's applicable. Maintenance and contracts, all the current contracts, the management contract, maintenance contracts, utilities, cable, whatever they might be. Any leases or rental agreements the association is party to. All the bids received for goods and services, they have to be retained for at least 1 year. That's all bids, not the bids that were awarded, not the bids that were we decided to move forward with the project. All bids for goods and services in the last year, part of the official records. All building permits, that was again an update in 2024. Under safety and structural, the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, commonly called the SIRS, and we'll talk about that in more detail. The Milestone Inspection Report, Phase 1 and 2 is applicable. Again, we'll talk about that in more detail. Any other engineering reports that deal with the structure of the community, and the educational records, your board member educational certification form that you fill out, we'll talk about filling out, and in addition, the certification that you receive by completing this course. All those things are required as part of the official records. So we put together a little chart for you that indicates how long each of those have to be saved. So your governing documents, all of those, including any amendments, have to be saved permanently. The meeting minutes of any board, unit owner, or committee meetings have to be saved permanently. Now, that's a recent change to the statute. So your community it used to be 7 years. So if you've been around a while, you may not have all of those meeting minutes going back because that was not always a requirement for associations. But moving forward, you need to preserve on a permanent basis any meeting minutes. Meeting notices and agendas, 7 years. Your owner rosters, just the current and continuous. Owner communications, that's emails, letters, notices, things sent to the owners, 7 years. Board member certifications, that's the certification form you're going to fill out, as well as this educational course certificate, 7 years, or the length of uninterrupted tenure. Ballots and voting records and proxies, 1 year from the date of the election. And a change, as we mentioned in the very beginning, HB 913, House Bill 913 became effective July 1, 2025. You are required to do recordings of any association meeting that is done online, and those recordings become part of the official record and have to be retained for 1 year. Budgets, accounting, bank statements, invoices, receipts, ledgers and journals, financial statements, payroll, tax returns, all of those things, 7 years. So all of the accounting related materials is 7 years. Your contracts and agreements, 7 years after their expiration. Your conflict of interest disclosures, well, because they become part of the meeting minutes as required by statute, then they're permanent. Bids for work, 1 year. Leases, copies of the leases for units rented or other equipment leases or anything else, 7 years. Structural insurance and legal other records, insurance policies, 7 years after the policy expiration. However, as a note and a best practice, we recommend you hold those longer. The statute of limitation on certain things like a slip and fall. It's important to understand that somebody might slip and fall today, and you may not see a lawsuit from that slip and fall until the very end of the statute of limitation, which is several years. So if somebody sues you for a slip and fall from 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever the statute of limitations is, it's the insurance that was in effect when that slip and fall that took place that has to defend the association and pay any awards that might be subsequently awarded to the whomever the person, owner, visitor, whomever it might be. So it's important to save insurance records. There's no harm in saving them on a permanent basis. You never know when you might need to fall back on who had the insurance at a particular time in the history of the community. If you find a structural, building defect that goes back to the developer, you may still have the ability to find some insurance coverage for things like that. Architectural plans and specifications, hold those permanently. Building permits, 7 years. Anything related to structural inspections, the milestone inspection report, 15 years. The structural integrity reserve study, 15 years. Turnover inspection reports, 15 years. Litigation records should be kept until 7 years after the resolution of whatever the issue was. Structural components and warranties and manuals, the duration of the warranty plus 7 years. And then remember that big umbrella, all other written records or digital records related to the operation or management of the community, well, all of those things fall under that 7-year requirement. Owners get access to the association records. If they want access to the records, they must submit a request in writing. There is no requirement for it to be certified or anything else. It can be an email, regular mail. They can drop a note by the office or the management company. It can be made by the unit owner or their authorized representative. And it may include a general request. I want to see all of the records, or it may include a specific request for a specific record that they want to see. The association has to respond within 10 working days with the records. If not, the association is automatically in violation of the statute and subject to a $50 a day fine up to $500, and that is only if the person whom requested the documents pursues a legal remedy for the fact they did not get those documents. It's not assessed by the DBPR. Those document inspections must take place within 45 miles of the property or in the same county, or they can also alternatively be supplied by email, online portal, or a secured shared folder like a Google Drive or Dropbox. Renters have some limited right to view documents. They can inspect and copy the declaration of condominium, bylaws and rules, and any structural integrity inspections are subject to renter review. Recent statute changes require that you provide a checklist with those documents that you provide the owner or their representative. That checklist must indicate all of the records you're making available related to that request and list any of the records you're not providing that were requested in the request by the owner or their representative. That checklist becomes an official record, and it must be maintained for 7 years by the association. According to the statute, this checklist creates a rebuttable presumption that the association complied with the records request law. So this is protecting the association. So you want to be sure that this checklist is provided anytime there is a records request. Now, it mentions that if there are official records might not be provided as part of the request or response that were asked for. What do we do then? Well, 718, 111, 12B indicates it's the responsibility of the association to make a good faith effort to recreate or recover any missing records. They can go back to prior board members, other former management company, vendors, banks, whatever resources might be available to find those records or recreate those records. The checklist in response to the owner's request must identify in detail which records aren't available, and then you want to keep track of that good faith effort to find those records or duplicate those records, and then preserve that along with the owner's request as well. As any documents are made available subsequently, because they are recovered or recreated, the date they were made available should also be included. So you're going to create, an initial checklist. It's got things missing. You're going to create a document that says, here's what we did to try to recreate or recover. And then a document that says we weren't able to get any, or we were. The subsequent records were provided at this particular date. Some things that aren't available for owner inspection include attorney-client privilege communication. So anything that you've discussed with the attorney in private, that's privileged communication, is not accessible as part of a records request. Personal owner information, there may be details like bank accounts or social security numbers that you obtained because you screen new owners or renters, and while it's a good idea to redact those things or destroy those things, they may be in your possession. They are not available to owners on a records request. Personnel records, not available, except for the extent of their salary and compensation. If they have an employment contract, that's also available for inspection. But if you have disciplined an employee or discussed, have personnel records of any sort, those are not available to owners on a records request. Any medical records of homeowners or residents? There may be times when you're dealing with an ADA situation or an accommodation for someone who has a disability, and you've obtained some level of documentation. Well, that's not available either. That is not deliverable as part of the owner records request. And certainly things that make sense, like security system details or software information, those things aren't part of discoverable. They're a part of discoverable legal events, but not part of an owner request. In addition to having those hard records and or digital records, you are also required, if you fall under a couple of benchmarks, to have a website that makes these certain documents available to owners. Until today, December 9th, 2025, the statute required if you had 150 or more units, you must have a compliant website. A compliant website it has restrictions on who can get on there, who can see those records, that you provide passwords for owners to be able to see those, and so forth. As of January 1, 2026, so about 21 days from now, if you have 25 or more units, you're now required to have a compliant website. So that changes as of less than a month from now. Almost everybody then is going to be required to have a compliant website. So what are the documents that are required to be on your website? The declaration of condominium and all the amendments, bylaws and any amendments, articles of incorporation, any amendments, your current rules and regulations, the list of executorial contracts and documents, bids received in the last year for contracts over $500. Remember, you're keeping all sorts of bids as part of your official documents, but only those over $500 need to be seen on the website for the past year. Adopted annual budget and any proposed budget, most recent financial report and monthly statements. Each director's certification, so that's going to be the self-certification as well as the certification provided that you completed this educational course. Any conflicts of interest, contracts, or documents. Unit owner meeting notices and agendas, board meeting notices and agendas, and in both cases, any and all of the attachments. The structural integrity reserve study, inspection reports like the milestone turnover, any other life safety inspections, building permits, and again, as we will discuss in more detail, related to the legislative bill HB 913, effective July 1, 2025, you were required to post those recordings of the meetings that were conducted online on your website, or links to those recordings for access by owners. Also part of HB 913 was a new reporting requirement to the Division of Condominiums. Part of that requirement was that each association has to create an online account with the division on or before October 1, 2025. So hopefully you've done that. Your association has an online account, and that account has the following information: the name of the association, the address of the association, the mailing address, email address, telephone, name and title of each director, It actually, you can fill in more information than that, but it's not required. So the contact information is not required. So we really typically don't fill that in. Management, company and manager, the hyperlink to your website, the total number of buildings, including the number of stories on your property, the total number of units, the age of each building individually, any construction that was commenced within the common elements within the last year, the association's assessments to the owners, special assessments to the owners, reserve assessments to the owners, and then any the name of any bank that has accounts in it that are the association's accounts. You also need to file this with the MA. That's number provided by the DBPR. MA stands for managing agent, and it's a little confusing because you think of a management agent as your management company, but as the association was set up, the managing agent is a reference to the condominium itself. So there's a MA number, managing agent number, that's assigned to the condominium, a PIN number. Those MA and PIN numbers are on the association's annual invoice, the $4 per door invoice that comes in November every year. A couple of links here are the website for filling this information in, or the instructions, and also then the link where you